Hey everyone, how are you? My name is Alex, and welcome back to Build Plus. Build Plus is a series in which we examine things that do not exist in vanilla Minecraft, but could potentially be added to vanilla Minecraft, and I go into creative mode, and I build those things based on what I think they might look like if they were added into the game. So, for today's episode, we are exploring what it would be like if a cave village actually existed in vanilla Minecraft, and what it might look like. This was a very exciting build for me to do. It took hours upon hours upon hours, and I'm very proud of it, but I also can definitely tell where I went wrong and what I did right, so I'm happy to take you guys on that journey. So let's get to it. Before we begin, if you enjoy this video, you can show support by leaving a like, and if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. This helps me out and keeps me bringing great content to you. Thanks so much, and let's get right into it. Caves are really, really tall. They're also narrow and dark, and they have a lot of obstacles, like the lava that you see here. In my travels, I really began to realize that I needed a cave that had enough open space to allow me to build in it and have creative freedom while also keeping to my challenge of making this look like it could exist in vanilla Minecraft. And what was great about this particular cave system was that it wasn't too narrow and it still looked like a difficult cave to navigate. But it also has this just beautiful submerged ravine that is one of the 1.17 features, and I fell in love with it. It was absolutely beautiful, and I felt like that just was so cool and so interesting, and because it has surface openings, I feel like that would be a great way for players to actually find the village. So this was the palette that I chose for the first building, and really all I had to do was just remove one tree, which was no big deal. I started thinking about what would make this make the most sense or have a cave-like feeling to it, because I didn't want it to be a village that's just underground, because that's not really what we're doing here. We're not just taking the typical vanilla style and just putting it underground. We want this to actually feel like something that's inside a cave environment. So I sort of went with this mineshaft-ish kind of look. And I really also wanted the mossy cobble in there because I wanted it to kind of have that dungeon look as well, like, ooh, something to really catch the player's attention, like, I should go investigate that. You know, something exploratory, because it is a big part of Minecraft, is exploring. And mapping out the paths was actually one of the most enjoyable parts of this for me, even though it was challenging, because then I realized, like, oh, this is too big, I should fix it. But, you know, that's fine. You know, it's no big deal. So, I went in and fixed it and was like, yeah, I like this. This works. This is cool. So, that's what I kept doing with it. And at this point, you know, while I was working on this path, I was also thinking about the style that I wanted the first building to be in. I wanted to do like I did with the Mesa Village and start with the 3x3 house, because I feel like the 3x3 is the foundation of a Minecraft village in a sense. It sets the tone for the style and for the build palette. So I wanted to set that for myself. But at this point in time, you know, I got like deep into creative mode with this, and I was doing a lot of like stepping back or flying back and looking and seeing, like, am I doing this right? Does this look good? Is this okay? And I didn't really do that as much with the Mesa Village, but I did it a lot with this build. And you'll see that throughout the entire video, that I really got into the whole creative, artistic aspect of this. And it really was a lot of fun. Once I had this entranceway finished, and I really did want this to be the entranceway, like, this is how you know, okay, this is a cave village because they have this entrance. So there's going to be more done with the entrance soon. I really felt like once I had that done that it was time to actually build the house. And I was a bit reluctant, as funny as that may seem, to get started on it. I was still also kind of scoping out the area, like, where do I want to put it? And so that in and of itself was a bit challenging for me. Like, the whole thing was really, really challenging. And that's part of what I enjoyed about this in particular, was how challenging it was. Like, where am I going to put it? Because when these buildings spawn into the game, they have to have a certain amount of space around them to allow them to spawn in. And if they don't have that space, they make that space. So platforms get built underneath buildings and things get removed. It's pretty interesting what a village will do to the topography. And I don't know everything that there is to know about the coding in the game, so you guys can definitely help me out with that. So here I actually decided to not build a building yet and instead do a path and have that set up before I did anything else, because I really wanted to map out the village and have a concrete setup of where I wanted everything to be, especially because I wanted the boat dock, so I kind of wanted to have this there so that the boat dock could be more realized at that point. Like, I wanted to be able to visualize it better, so I figured, you know what, let me take it slow, do this first, and then we'll get into the building part. So, yeah, that's what I did. And I am very, very, very proud of this. As many flaws as this village has, I'm still very proud of it. So, here I am, continuing with the paths. Go figure. I really tried to build it into the cave itself, in a sense, or basically make it look like it was part of the cave. Because you know how the paths are in villages. They just replace the blocks that are there with the path block. So I thought that would be a lot of fun to just build it around that, but also it doesn't, I thought maybe in the game's coding it wouldn't overwrite ores, so the ores could just be in the middle of a path. I don't know if that's something that could be done, but I wanted it to be done. So here we go, finally, we're actually getting to the first building. And it's kind of funny because I built a 2-story version of this, which is literally this building that I'm about to make on top of itself, which is kind of funny the way that I'm describing it right now. But that's basically what I did. And the 2-story building has no real purpose. It doesn't have any job blocks in it. It was just there. And this styling that I actually do here, it changes quite a bit as time goes on. You'll see me add in new blocks later. So it's not quite as mundane looking as we go forward. But yeah, this was basically the shape that it took initially. And I chose all of these blocks because I wanted them to be somewhat unique to make this village look interesting, but I also wanted them to have kind of like a rock-like and cave-like feel, to have kind of a cave palette. And I wanted to use the calcite because I thought that would be really interesting given that this is being built in 1.17. So let's use a 1.17 block, especially because, like, let's pretend that cave villages are being added in the 1.17 update. Let's use 1.17 blocks. That just made sense to me. So that's what we did. So, yes, I did stick with oak wood, and I thought for a classic village that would just kind of make sense, especially because all of the mine shafts that we see, they don't have different wood regardless of what biome they may spawn in, so every single mine shaft is always going to have oak wood, and I felt like because I was going for that mine shaft look, that it would be really important to incorporate the oak wood. Additionally, there's a lot of things that I do here that are kind of funny. Like, all of these blocks that I'm placing, you, the player, are not going to see them unless you actually go mining for them. But that's the way that it would spawn in. So I figured, you know what, I'll just put them there. No one's going to see them until they see the video, but why not? We'll put them there. So that's what I did. And it is pretty funny if you think about it, but it was done with good reason. So, at this point in time, I hadn't decided what the windows would be yet. So that was actually kind of funny to me because it was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I figured I'd just work on this thing first, and I didn't like the way that that was sticking out, especially because obviously the fences couldn't connect to it. It bothered me. So I figured I'd kind of do what I did with the Maze of Villages and, build the tall awning over the door again. And, one thing that I really liked was you come in and boom, here's a house, like right off the bat. And it's built very much into the cliff or into the rock. Like this is a house that they built right into the cave. It's not something that has cleared out like a ton of space and doesn't look like it's part of the environment. I really wanted it to look like part of the environment. I don't know if you can really do that in vanilla Minecraft, but let's hope. And that's the other thing too. So I chose fences for the windows, which was pretty cool. So this right here is the building that is the exact same as the first one that I made, except it's just the same building on top of each other. It seems like it's really lazy now that I'm looking at it, but it's really not, because the amount of time and thought that I actually had to put into making the two-story was really hilarious. It was at this point when I realized, oh, these are too close together and the trapdoors are not going to work, so we nixed that idea, and I decided to kind of just leave it as it is. And it's fine. I felt like that was just too much detail, and I didn't want there to be too much. This is in a cave, and cluttering it is going to make the cave seem claustrophobic, which I guess would be okay in certain circumstances, but in this I really didn't want it to be a claustrophobic environment. I wanted it to be open but still narrow, something that would be a little difficult to navigate but not impossible. So that was sort of my thought process behind it. And, just these two buildings by themselves, I was really happy with the style that I set for myself at this point, and I was feeling really confident about it. Like I had mentioned earlier about vanilla villages having to have platforms built underneath the buildings so that they actually fit, I did have to go in and make a platform for this building to make it look vanilla Minecraft. And it was a pain in the butt to place all of those dirt blocks one by one. I know that World Edit is a thing, I just don't use it. So, that's how that happened, but it's fine. So anyways, I struggled with this library a lot, and part of it was because I was building it into the terrain, so it was really hard to get it to fit. So much so that I had to really use a lot of big brain power to kind of make it fit. And the other issue that I encountered with the library was that there really wasn't anything making it look like the library initially, other than there was bookshelves inside of it. And I wanted it to really have a unique look, something that made it the library rather than it just being a building that looked like every other building, just longer. I didn't want that to happen. So that's how I did certain things later on that you'll get to see in a minute. And so in any case, this was, like I said, really challenging, but I very much love the library at the same time. I'm very proud of it. I'm happy with how it came out, after sitting and reflecting on it for quite a bit of time. But it's not the best building in this. There's certain buildings that I'm much more happy with, but this one isn't the one that I'm like, yeah, the library's the best one. I don't have a deep creative attachment to this particular building. It's the one that I'm the least proud of all the things that I am proud of. So, I thought maybe that would make it unique, but putting down the trapdoors, but it really didn't. And then I had this thought to myself, wait a minute, let's make some slightly different blocks, because hey, why not? Now it's unique in comparison to the others, but not too unique. You know what I mean? So then I was like, I gotta do something pretty and decorative, but I can't have flowers, this is a cave. And then it suddenly occurred to me, oh yeah, we can do mushrooms. So that's what I did. I put down mushrooms, and I'm very happy with those mushrooms being there. So, yeah, that's how that happened. And at this point, it was really just a matter of putting in the books and the lectern and making this into a library. So I decided to get rid of that window there because I felt like it was pointless, considering that this was where the bookshelves would go, so there was no point to having a window behind a giant wall. So that's how that happened. So I was thinking to myself, if one of these cave villages spawns on one of these water ravines, then or water-filled ravines, then why not have a boat dock be something that they spawn with, but only if they're against water? And I thought that would be a lot of fun. I mean, the villagers wouldn't use it, obviously, and it would really just be a way for you, the player, to get boats, but hey, why not, you know? So, yeah, I built up all the terrain underneath the path because that actually happens in the game. It codes that way. You know, we're trying to make this look like vanilla Minecraft after all. So, then I built the boat dock, and I'm showing you every single detail of how I built this because it was really hard for me to think this up as I was doing it, and it took me a while. A really long while. It should not have, but it did. Like, first I built it up here, and then I was like, wait a minute, that's too high up off the water, so if villagers end up walking off the edge, they're going to fall in the water, they're not going to be able to get back in, it's going to be a problem. And I think it was at this point when I began to realize that. And I'm not sure exactly when I fixed that problem, but I think it's like right about now when I began to really realize, ooh, not a good idea. Let's make this a little bit more sensible and put this on the water so if villagers do walk off into the water, they can get back. I'm not 100% sure if drowned actually spawn in these water ravines, but that would be a really interesting dynamic. That would be very, very interesting if they did, because that would add a whole new aspect or whole extra interesting aspect to a cave village. I know we're never going to have cave villages, and I can understand why, but, it's still fun to think about. So, things like that are fun to contemplate, like, what would happen if we did this here? And yeah, it drives me nuts that walls and fences don't connect. I feel like they should. I feel like it's a missed opportunity in this game, and it drives me nuts. But yeah, at this point, I was just like dorking around with different decorative details. Like, do I like that there? And I'm like, no, I really don't. I like that better there. It was things like that. Like, there was a lot of like, maybe I like it this way. Maybe I like it that way. And so at this point, I was trying to think to myself, okay, that just looks like a plank platform. There's nothing exciting about it. What can I do to make this more interesting? And so after quite a bit of thinking, I finally put down the boats and decided that the best thing to do would be to go into the center of the boat dock and place it down those stone slabs. And I actually really like the way that looks. I think it makes it quite interesting to have that there. It's a, really nice decorative detail that makes this boat dock a little bit more interesting than what it was before. So, yeah, I like the boat dock now that I'm rewatching the footage. Sometimes leatherworkers are a house, and other times they're just an area with a cauldron. So I decided that I was going to do an area with a cauldron instead of devoting an entire house to the leatherworker, considering that we have limited space. And I'm actually really happy with this. I've never built a leatherworker before, and I wasn't really 100% sure going into it of what should or should not be there beyond the cauldron, which makes a leatherworker a leatherworker. Like, I know that water is a component to this, and I felt like that was probably important to add in. So that was what I did, and, I dug out the space below the cauldron to, to have, the water in there, and I thought that that would actually be the most intelligent thing for me to do in this circumstance. So that's what I did. And then I was looking at it and I just really did not like the dirt. And I was feeling like that just looked really bad. Like there was something about it that was really clunky. And that's how that happened. And I felt like this just went so much more with the style of the entire build, or of this entire project, I should say. And it's alright. I don't think it's the most impressive thing I've ever built, though. Now, this build, I love the design of it. I'm very happy with it. The problem with the Shepherd, and I'm sure a lot of you who are very familiar with the different mechanics of Minecraft are aware, the Shepherd can't be underground because you have to have animals, and there's the amount of manpower that it would take to get sheep into the cave in and of itself makes this not plausible in vanilla Minecraft because it's a bit ridiculous. But also because the sheep need grass underneath them in order to grow their wool back, because there's no sun exposure, they can't. Once they eat all of the grass, I'm pretty sure that it doesn't grow back. At least that's the experience I had dating back to like 1.8. I distinctively remember I had an issue where like my sheep were not growing back their wool and I couldn't figure it out until somebody in the comment section said, it's because the grass isn't growing back because the sheep ate it all. And I think the sunlight plays a part in that. So the Shepherd being here, as much as I had fun making this building, it just does not make any sense. Like, this is definitely one of the flaws of this build, is that the Shepherd just should not be here. This is one of the reasons why a cave village cannot exist, because you can't have certain things due to the environment. It's just not livable. It's not realistic in a sense. Not that Minecraft is realistic, but it just doesn't make any sense. And it's kind of funny because it's like, this is a fantasy game, so we should be able to just do whatever we want, but we really can't. Also, I think a pretty big reason why we don't have cave villages is because villagers are humanoid, and having villagers living in a cave makes them look like cavemen and makes them look primitive, and then you're like scratching the surface of something that can be very offensive. So I'm sure that is like one of the big reasons why we don't have cave villages. If they've even come up when Mojang have their little meetings with each other, like if they've ever discussed having villages in caves, or like cave structures, probably the caveman issue has come up. So, yeah, but, that being said, I, again, do very much like this building a lot. It's just, it doesn't work. As much as I like it, it just doesn't work. It's just really hilarious. Like, the amount of time and effort that it would take one of these villagers to, get the sheep down here is just silly. And unfortunately, the Shepherd can't have the stone brick walls without it looking bad. And I thought about a whole bunch of different ways that I could modify this, but it really won't work. So it just kind of had to be that way. And it drives me nuts that it's not cohesive with everything else, even though, again, I still really like this build a lot. Yeah, the walls and fences not connecting drives me crazy. In this clip, what I'm doing is playing with the environment a little bit, because I figured, maybe these villages should have something that ties them more to 1.17 and the cave update by incorporating things from Lush Caves. In a sense, like not going too crazy with it, but definitely having like the moss carpet all over the paths and having the moss blocks in and around different areas to really make it more like, yeah, this is part of a cave and it's probably been here for a while and it's a livable space. Something to kind of make it look a bit more tangible and a bit more part of the environment. That was kind of what I was going for here. So that's what I started doing. And I really loved using these new blocks. And experimenting with them and playing around with them, it really was so much fun to like incorporate these different things and do it in a way that was kind of subtle, but not too subtle. Like you notice it because they're new to the game, but they're not so new or so subtle that it just looks terrible. And this area right here, by the way, is my all-time favorite part of the village. Out of like all of the areas, there's something about this particular area that I feel like is the best looking. So I'm not even really sure why. I just like this area the most. I feel like for screenshot potential for a thumbnail, it just looks great, which is why I used it as the thumbnail. So yeah, but you know, I went around and I kept on adding in the moss, and that's how that happened. Here was the point when I really began to realize that these buildings were too basic and they needed something to make them far more interesting. And this is one of those moments where I actually put a block in a space where you would never see it, but it's there. And it's that moment. Which honestly, I feel like it's kind of hilarious in a sense that I bothered to do that because there's almost no point to it, but I felt like it needed to be done. So yeah, I added in the mossy stone bricks. I felt like because of all of the moss that I was already using, that it just made sense to have it also growing on the buildings. So that's what I did. And I am very, very happy with it. I know it's a very tight squeeze in these areas, and I'm sorry for the way that it looks in video in a sense, because I feel like, you know, it's really hard for me to get good angles on certain things because it's so much of a tight squeeze. And so, yeah, but I'm really happy with this idea. And I think I actually got a little bit lazy with these chisel blocks and didn't put them everywhere because I didn't feel like digging out the entire building or the entire, you know, terrain just to add in one thing. I was slightly mentally exhausted by this project at this point. This is me making room for the stonemason, and there's not really much else that I can say right now besides that. So I am a big fan of the stonecutter, and I think the stonecutter is probably one of the best, if not the best, job block to be added into the game because it is so useful. And for that reason, I absolutely love the stonemason, so I had to do another stonemason like I did in the mesa. And so that's how that happened. Now, building this was a lot of fun, but one thing to definitely note was even though I had moved the terrain around a lot, or, you know, cleared out a lot of the terrain, I ended up having to do it again because I wanted the stonemason to be a lot larger than it actually was. And so that's how that happened. I left the inside of the stonemason kind of bare, which really was not the smartest choice, and I could have done a lot better with that, but it's okay. You know, it's not the end of the world necessarily. So it's like one little tiny mistake. It's not that big of a deal. I do like this stonemason a lot. I feel like it fits the tone of the village. I feel like it fits into the whole project. And because I had modified the build palette, you know, it worked out really well for what I wanted it to be. So you know, there's that. And you know, I don't really have that much else to say about the stonemason to be completely honest with you guys. I mean, at this point I was so invested in and set with this style that I was fine with how things were going and I was liking it a lot. So yeah, there was less thought going into like this building right here and more like, yeah, I'm just building it because it needs to be built, which isn't really a bad thing. It's just not, you know, there wasn't as much heavy thinking with this one as there was in the Mesa Village in certain areas. Like other areas of this were very exhausting for me mentally, and then other parts of it were like, yeah, that's fun. I had a lot of fun with this. And I think that's exactly why Mojang like won't add a cave village into the game because for obvious reasons. One thing that I also like about this building and also the church that I build right next to it is that they can be seen from the surface. So if you the player running around in the game, you're going to run over this and be like, oh, here's a village, which is one of the ways that I wanted this to actually be something you could find is, you're caving along and you happen to find this, or you're running along and you see an opening and there's the cave village that's barely visible, and that really makes it a lot of fun. And if you guys are wondering, by the way, like how I'm getting away with not having any mobs while it's so dark, it's because I turned off mob spawning so that I could do this without having to worry about all kind of mobs all over the place and potentially lagging my game, because that's always annoying when your game lags. And even with like 16 gigabytes of RAM and me allocating like 12 gigabytes of RAM to the game, I still end up with lag, which is always fun. So anyways, yeah, that's pretty much that for the Stonemason. Like I said, this was a lot of fun for me to make this particular building. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys like it too. I'm very, very open to any and all feedback that you guys have about this particular building, because I'm very curious what you guys will think. So, yeah, let's move on to the next part. These are just details in the Stonemason that I can't really say much about because it's just the interior, or part of the interior anyways, and, yeah, that's, how it is. And it's 100% built over a cave opening, which is very interesting. So I just kind of covered that up and pretended like that wasn't there. And I just didn't feel like dealing with it at that point. Now we can have the stone cutter added in, and that pretty much makes most of this building finished. Also, I decided to add this in as just kind of like a decorative detail to make it more of a stonemason. I am not happy with this church at all. Not even remotely. And probably you guys who are watching this will be wondering, why aren't you happy with it? I like it, and I will very much appreciate that you like it. But I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's the whole way that this is built is kind of sloppy and amateurish looking, which is why I don't like it. And for some reason, unlike the stonemason, I decided that I would be nice to this building and build up underneath it, even though I did not do that for the stonemason. I'm not sure why I gave this particular building that I didn't even want to build so much more care and respect that I felt it deserved. And I know it sounds like really bad, but I didn't want to do a church, but I felt like I needed to do a church because it needed to happen. In order to have different kinds of buildings, I didn't want to build the exact same buildings that I did in the Mesa Village, except for the stonemason. The stonemason was really the one that I wanted to have there, but not anything else. Like, I wanted, like, certain buildings have to exist, but other buildings don't. And so it's like, yeah, we should probably have a church. I just want to try a church in one of these concept videos to see what will happen. And so that's how this happened. And it's very, very based on the classic vanilla church. But where I went wrong was making the second story. I really struggled with that the most. And I should not have, but I did. So that's basically what I can say about that. And I tried way too hard to make this look really good, and it just did not come out the way that it should have come out. If that makes any sense. Yeah, I'm trying really hard to be enthusiastic, but I just don't like this building. And it's okay for me not to like something. It's okay for me not to be happy with something. It's alright. Like, these concept videos are really supposed to be about conceptualizing what this might look like and how it would look. And they're not necessarily meant to be perfect. Vanilla Minecraft has quite a few flaws. I mean, there is that one house in Vanilla Plains Villages that is just the weirdest platform that you kind of have to parkour up to in order to get into. It is just the weirdest thing. And this is a point where I was like, if I make that a 5x5, I might as well not even have it there. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, I was like, okay, I'll make it a 2 wide. That'll work. And then when I got in there, I realized, oh, wait, I can't even put in a lantern in like the center of the ceiling, and that just like drove me crazy. And also, building it into this area was a huge pain in the butt, which is exactly why vanilla villages do not spawn in caves. If you've ever wondered why, this building alone answers that question of how obnoxious it was to actually build this in. And this was definitely a part of this that I did not enjoy as much as I should have. So, yeah, there's that. But, you know, that being said, part of the reason, too, why I left this without being sped up is because I wanted you to see, like, how long it took me to actually build this and how much thought I actually had to put into it, because there was so much thinking involved. Like, there was so much time put into this building, and it was kind of exhausting in a sense, because it's like, I want to do this like this, and I want to do this like this, and I want to do this thing here, and there was just so much design that went into this. Even though I'm not happy with it, I'm still proud of the amount of thought that I put into it. So, yeah. It's okay, I guess. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's okay. I think, as a matter of fact, at this point in time, I realized a mistake that I had made, and I actually had to fix that mistake. I think. Possibly. No, maybe not. No, I think I actually did it right. I think. Yeah, I think I did. Okay, maybe there was a different building where I, like, made a mistake and had to fix it, or maybe I made the mistake, fixed it, and cut it out of the footage, although I don't think I did, because this is, like, one solid clip of footage. So, yeah, this whole 2 wide instead of 3x3 space is not something that I am particularly happy with. I liked having the orange stained glass in, though. I thought for the cave that actually looked kind of cool to have that color in there, because I didn't want it to be brown or like gray, because I thought that would be ugly, but I did want it to be something colorful, to at least have some kind of color in this village besides green and gray. I wanted it to be slightly more interesting. So, that's how that happened. And, you know, at this point I was kind of like, well, I'm just gonna go with it. We're going to accept that this is how it is, and we're just going to live with it. And yeah, I did a 2 block high window as well. And this is actually the only building in the entire village that has glass windows. Everything else has fences. So I felt like that kind of made it more church-like and more, you know, ritzy and rich and wealthy and whatnot, in a sense. I mean, they're living in a cave, so I'm not sure how wealthy they would be, but that's sort of what I was going for here. So, yeah, put in the awning, which I really liked still having this type of awning here because it fits in the style, but there's definitely something different about this building that you can notice right off the bat. So, yeah, and it was kind of difficult to plot in where things should go. So, this was the part where I had to do, like, a ton of thinking, and I eventually just decided on this. And I feel like it's alright for what it is. The only problem is the placement of the lanterns, so one of these had to be a whole block. And I kind of didn't like that, but I also kind of did, because I felt like that kind of made the lantern look like it was hanging from the ceiling on a more stable platform versus not having that there. So, yeah, this very, very tiny space that's almost pointless to even exist because it is so tiny. And, like, literally, that was the only place where I could put the lantern, was right there. Yeah, it really was the most exhausting and least successful of all the buildings in this build. It's not the worst thing I've ever done, but it's not exactly the best. And like I said, you know, that's just kind of, it is what it is. And, yeah, for some reason I keep thinking that the brewing stand is in with the decorative blocks, and it's not. But yeah, there we go. There's the brewing stand, this is the cleric, and, yeah, that's that. So just, you know, grabbed a door and stuck it on. So right here, I did more moss decorations because I felt like this was just a grassy area that needed a little bit more to it without it not fitting into vanilla Minecraft. So that's what I did, and I'm happy with this too. And I liked having those little bushes there. I thought that was really cute. So yeah, I went around building a bunch of mossy areas and things all around just for haha's sake. And you know, that, by the way, to the left is another regular farmhouse that I had a lot of fun building. And I had already built it before, so I didn't record myself building that one for very obvious reasons. So, yeah, there's really not much else to the decorations at this point. There's a lot of, you know, making bells and putting in lanterns, and I'm really just going to put on some music for you guys and let you just watch it, and then we'll move on to the next part after that. So here's the part of this video where we talk about where I screwed up big time. And that's with coming up with defenses for the village, because they're in a cave, so they're going to have zombies and everything else coming after them constantly. So instead of just having iron golems, I thought maybe they should have a trap. And the big error with having this here is it's so easy for the villagers as well as the iron golems to walk into the trap, which you'll see in a minute. And you know, it's really funny because it's like the most basic thing ever, but it just, in theory it works, but when you're actually making it and putting it in and then testing it out, that's when you realize, oh, this was a bad idea. So, you know, it's funny because I couldn't remember how to make one of these because it had been so long since I made one, so it took me forever to remember how. Because the calcite is a regular theme in all of these buildings, it just made sense to me to use it in the farms as well. So that's basically what I did, was I use the calcite, and I like the farms very much, and I think that the calcite looks really pretty, so I'm very happy with having it. I love using the netherite hoe whenever I do these things, just so that I can get that achievement. And there's really no point to me getting that achievement. It's just really funny to me that you can get it even in creative mode. I have a netherite hoe, by the way, in my Hexacon series. So, yeah. And this was a part where I began to realize that, yeah, that's a bit of an issue. So let's not put anything near there where a villager's gonna like fall in. But I didn't fill that in, which means that a villager could still fall in. So this is just the other farm that I made, and there's not really much that I can say about this one other than it's a farm. And it needs proper lighting in order to function as a farm. Otherwise, you can't plant anything, which is something that I had almost completely forgotten about this game. I wanted to keep the interiors as simple as they typically are in vanilla Minecraft, but I also wanted to incorporate a lot of the 1.17 features, so the glowberries were added into a lot of the loot chests, especially the loot chests that go in the regular houses, which are technically the farmhouses. And I'm very glad that I went ahead and did this, because I think it looks really cool to have that there. I really had a lot of fun doing the loot chests for this one in particular. Like, I had fun doing the loot chests in the Mesa Village, but it was a bit tedious. But in here it was a lot easier because it being a cave village, it's kind of supposed to be a little bit more simplistic because it's a cave and there's not a lot that can be found in caves, technically speaking. So there you go. The only problem with this is that there's no glowberries in the environment anywhere to justify the glowberries being in the chest. That's one of the big problems with this. So, yeah. But is that really that big of a deal? Not necessarily. I mean, I could always go back in and add them in, and, you know, that would be that. I mean, you wouldn't see it, but I would do it. And I guess that would be fun. But, you know, it is what it is. So, yeah, the stonemason, that's like, I'll put stone in the loot chest. Like, I don't even know if a stonemason has a loot chest. Probably not. But I figured, hey, why not? I'll put that in. And I really had fun with the loot chest for the cleric as well. It's like, let's make this really, like, good loot, in a sense, something that's actually useful. So, yeah, there are the farmers. And the villagers adding them in was such a pain in the butt. I had to move the lectern because the villager just would not accept that the lectern was there. So we were having problems like that, and it was driving me crazy. I don't know why the villagers were just behaving like this, and they were making me want to go out of my mind. This guy, I think he finally went and found a job for himself and decided to stay there. So, I think he became the stonemason. So then at this point I just had to put in the cleric, and it's kind of funny because the cleric did not want to be the cleric and was just straight up refusing to be the cleric. Like, I don't know what his problem was, but the only way that I could figure out the solution to that was to kill him. And then he decided he wanted to be a cleric. It's like, I don't know what happened there, but I don't think he was a nitwit. I think it was just, you know, the game not doing what it was supposed to do, because I was having that problem quite a bit. At this point, I think is when I decided to put in the iron golems. Yeah, it is. I think it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, and the reason why I waited was because the Iron Golem is an entity, and I wanted to wait until I had all the villagers in before I put in the Iron Golems. And after this clip is done, I actually test out the defenses by spawning a bunch of zombies to see, like, what will happen. I also wanted to spawn, like, one golem up here to make sure that there were defenses in both areas of the village, and I guess this guy needed like a lot of space or needed to be built in a different way because he just would not spawn. He just like would not become alive, and it was making me nuts. So I had to like completely rebuild him, and it's really funny because I didn't have to go like delete all those iron blocks. I could have just like deleted the 2 and rebuilt his arms like that, and then for some reason putting him this way actually made him work. So now it was time to test out the defenses, and they kind of worked, but not really. But the Iron Golem being there helped, although the Iron Golem, as you can see, walks right through the trap, so he ends up taking quite a bit of damage. So that didn't work. Alrighty, folks, so I really enjoyed making this village, and it was a lot of fun for me to explore this concept and different stylistic choices and why this could or could not potentially exist in vanilla Minecraft. I would say this definitely is something that cannot be implemented into vanilla Minecraft. I don't even know if you can make a mod for it. If somebody has made a mod for it, that would be wonderful. But in any case, I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, then feel free to subscribe, comment, and like if you want to see more. And as always, I will see you guys next time.